Good evening and welcome to Taking the Initiative. I'm Reverend Bill Kuntze, your host for these conversations with leaders in the nonprofit sector, leaders in public service, leaders in voluntary organizations of all sorts that are making our communities just greater places to live, greater places to work. I always want to call your attention to our website, www.takingtheinitiative.com. There is an archive there of our shows for the last 3 or 4 years. You can just page down, watch any topic that's of interest to you or a show you might have missed if you weren't watching one night. And we have links. We would really like to hear your suggestions and ideas, so you can just send us a little message and we will pay attention. Regular viewers of Taking the Initiative are familiar with the Lehigh Conference of Churches because over the years they've been here many times to talk about their wide range of social services that they provide for the hungry and the poor in our region. This evening I will be talking with the new religious leader at the Conference of Churches and how his work relates to the social services of the conference. Stay tuned and meet this gentleman. Welcome back. The Reverend Dr. Larry Pickens, Esquire, is the ecumenical director of the Lehigh Conference of Churches. Larry has been an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church for over 30 years. I'm a United Methodist, fess up, and he comes from Chicago, like me, and we certainly did know each other when we were young pastors back in Chicago. Larry has served in several pastoral positions, coincidentally in one church that many years earlier I had served. He's an attorney licensed in Illinois and South Carolina, and he has served as the ecumenical staff officer of the United Methodist Church worldwide. He came to his current position in January 2015. Larry, welcome.
Thank you so much, Bill, and it's good to be a part of this program.
Larry, you are rapidly becoming a prominent public religious leader in the region. So before we talk about what you do, I would like people to know a little bit about who you are. You grew up in Chicago. Your pastoral ministry was in Chicago, and then it seems the next thing I knew you were off to law school. I've never asked you about that ever in any conversation. So could you talk about that shift in your career briefly?
Well, I was actually serving a congregation in the inner city of Chicago at the time, and we were getting involved in a lot of development, housing development in particular. And the more I got involved personally with my congregation, it just seemed like it would be a good fit for me to actually go to law school and sort of understand what it was that we were doing at the time. And so that led me into that direction, and ultimately I did go to law school and completed that, and I actually had a much more extensive impact upon the church, serving in the judicial council of the church, which you are aware of. And I think what it has also done is given me a greater appreciation for social justice and the impact that people of faith can have on communities.
So you didn't really practice law as a set up shop for a very long time, right?
Not for a very long time. Yeah. I practiced a little, but not very much.
And soon after that, you were in the position of the Chief Staff Ecumenical Officer of the United Methodist Church worldwide. Now, not many people have met somebody who's been in those circles.
Sure.
Give just a little flavor of what you did there and what it was like.
Sure. I represented the United Methodist Church in various settings, in the Vatican, the World Council of Churches. My role was to help people understand our church's relationship in relation to the ecumenical movement, I served as a member of the Central Committee and Executive Committees of the World Council of Churches, worked with the National Council of Churches, and I think the most essential part of that is that as we work together as people of faith, we're really called to find ways that we can cooperate, and particularly when we can make a witness for justice, that's important, and that's the role that I sought to play ecumenically.
And not many other of my colleagues have pictures on their office wall of them with two different popes, which really shows the kind of level you were working at.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right? You have two
pictures
with, you met two different popes.
I met two different popes, and the reason I met them is because of the ecumenical involvement of our church. And actually, the first pope, Pope John Paul II, I met when I was a student at the Ecumenical Institute of the World Council of Churches in Geneva. And as part of that experience, we visited the Vatican and had an audience with the Pope. So that was a great experience in terms of my formative years as a student.
Well, now you, much to my delight, you've come from Chicago to the Lehigh Valley and accepted this enlarged and enhanced position at the Lehigh Conference of Churches of ecumenical director. I guess, why this position? Why this place? Why now?
Well, the joke I tell people is that I came here to help the Phillies.
They need it.
But seriously, I came because it was an opportunity for me to begin developing the ecumenical and interfaith work of the Conference of Churches. I think that, as you are aware, the Conference of Churches is going through some transition at this point, and it was a real opportune time for me to come and really design and structure what our ecumenical and interfaith work will look like. And that's what attracted me to coming to the Lehigh Valley in order to do that. And that's been the case. I've been given that opportunity to make it work.
Well, and I always like to have some old friends move into the, what's for me is, well, it's no longer a new area. I've been here about 20 years, but, well, as I mentioned, the Lehigh Conference of Churches should need no introduction to our audience, but you know, I think it'd still be helpful to give an overview of the conference, if you would. What are the services of the Lehigh Conference of Churches? What does it do in addition to your ecumenical work?
It does a great deal, and the work that we do has to do with housing. Through our Pathways program, we provide housing for people who are moving from homelessness into a more structured and secure situation. That program involves caseworkers who are committed to working with people, not only in terms of housing, but also addressing their needs related to health care, mental health needs, the need for work. We will help people in that regard. We also have our Daybreak program, which is designed to create a space for people who are mentally challenged, to give them a setting where they can relate to each other, and also have people who are concerned about their well-being and help them address the social needs that they have. They come together, they have meals together, they do activities together. It's a real positive kind of experience. And I think one of the important aspects of that program is that it also involves volunteers from churches who come and participate. They'll prepare a meal, or they'll be a part of that experience, and it makes a big impact upon folks when they interact with these people. Our soup kitchen, which is operating 3 days a week, is at St. Paul Lutheran Church, is another element that I would lift up as being a significant ministry of the Conference of Churches.
And I know it's been renamed or whatever. I wasn't quite familiar when I read about the HOPE program.
The HOPE program is designed to deal with the housing needs of persons, but it has a much more intense kind of focus, particularly because these are people who are dealing with some real mental health issues and in some instances drug addiction. So the focus of that program is to not only provide the housing element, but also to deal with these critical issues that people are dealing with in their lives. So that HOPE program has a more intensive kind of response.
Yeah. And we have featured each of those programs here on Taking the Initiative. It seems like we're cutting them short. Mm-hmm. One thing that's been in the news, if you just say a word about it, is the winter sheltering program, mm-hmm. Which is really the conference has been doing for the city.
Mm-hmm. We've been managing it for the city, and we had a real challenging time this year because of the big snowstorm that came about. The positive that came out of some of the controversy related to that is that more people are getting involved around the issue of homelessness in Allentown. And I think as we look forward to next year, there will be a much more extensive way of looking at how we address the winter season. And of course, the Conference of Churches will be a part of that conversation. But I think that conversation is going to get larger. I think the city is going to be involved more in that conversation. I think the county, the Lehigh County, has to be more involved. And I think our local churches are going to get more involved. And that's a win for all of us.
So we'll have some decent emergency shelter, yes,
for
those in need during cold weather.
And planning, yes.
Well, you know, I think I mentioned, we've never really talked about the work of the ecumenical director, the work that you direct, even though, you know, in a part-time way, very part-time, for about 4 months between jobs. I did that, and we may have mentioned it here a little, but describe the role now of the ecumenical director, and briefly, we've got a minute and a half or so till break, what it is you direct.
Well, you were a tough act to follow, but nonetheless, we're trying. And what we're doing now is really making the relationships with congregations and other faith communities a priority. And we've initiated some things related to ways in which we can cooperate and work together. The Syrian refugee welcome.
I want to ask about that next half. Yeah, that's one of them.
It's one of those. The Interfaith and Action Committee of the Conference of Churches is engaging in some interfaith activities. We're looking at some ways that we might cooperate with churches and other faith communities around a festival of freedom. That's something that we're looking at this point as some of our religious leaders are coming together to find ways that we can cooperate. We encourage our people to participate in events that are sponsored by Muslim groups, Jewish groups, because we feel that the more we open up possibilities for interacting with other communities, the greater the possibility for us to find ways that we can work together and greater common ground can happen.
Well, after this brief break, I want to talk about some of the community issues you're involved in, and some of the religious activities that you direct of the conference that have been, you know, kind of off the radar screen for a while. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back. I'm Reverend Bill Kuntze, and this evening I'm talking with a friend and colleague from Chicago ministry days, the Reverend Larry Pickens, the ecumenical director of the Lehigh Conference of Churches. Well, I want to talk about some of these programs that I think we justly emphasize all the social services of the conference, but there's all these other things like the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity. What is it?
Well, every year, this is an international program in which we participate. Every year, there is a prayer service that is designed in order to bring Christians together around issues of solidarity. And this year was the church in Latvia that produced the program. The program is done by the Pontifical Council for Christian Unity of the Catholic Church and the Faith and Order Committee of the World Council of Churches. We participate in that, and every January that happens, usually around the time that we celebrate justice and peace and Dr. King's service to our faith communities and human relationships. We have that service, and it's a powerful week where we oftentimes encourage people to go to other churches and see what their traditions are like, and it opens up conversation points for people of our faith.
It makes a whole week of prayer.
A whole week of prayer, and there are prayers that are a part of this service and week. So each day, Christians can be praying for the issues of Christian unity, and we do it every year. This year we had Reverend James Forbes as our preacher from the Riverside Church to speak to the issue of Christian unity, and it was
He's
a great
quite a preacher.
He's quite a preacher. It was a great opportunity.
And one of the things I like is that you not only direct that, but you also direct some other things that pull folks together, like the crop walk and Super Bowl Day of Caring.
Yes.
Is it just a word?
So the crop walk is a program that engages people around issues of hunger, and it's an opportunity for our church communities to participate, and part of the proceeds that are taken up for the crop walk here locally go to the Conference of Churches and its effort around hunger. Super Bowl is
and the other part goes to international hunger relief.
Right,
Yeah, it's a
through
great,
Church
great
World
thing.
Service. Super Bowl goes or involves young people. It's an opportunity for youth in a church to work together in order to put together their resources to help those who are in hunger. And it's a real good mission opportunity. Churches do all kinds of creative things. They'll have chili cook-offs. They'll have all kinds of events that happen around the time of the Super Bowl.
When so much is being wasted.
Yes.
And so this is a great program. Of course, the time when your work is most prominent in the community is the Campbell Lecture and the Ecumenical Award.
Sure. Campbell Lecture is something that happens every year. Robert Campbell was a great ecumenist and was someone who made a difference in the life of this community, and we honor that. His family made certain that this lecture would take place annually. The lecture is designed to address pertinent issues related to our faith communities. And
what was the issue for 2016's recently experienced lecture?
Yes, 2016 involved the theology of Pope Francis as it relates to the poor. And it was also a contemporary look at liberation theology. So it was an opportunity for us to really examine for the first time this Pope who comes from Latin America and his theology as it relates to poverty. And then to look at a contemporary view of liberation theology. So,
do you know who's coming in 2017 yet, or is it still in the works?
We're going to plan that, and that'll be in the works. And then next year, as part of the Campbell Lecture, we will honor our ecumenical awardee during that time.
Just a word, what I find ironic, this election cycle, the debates have been full of rowdyism and name calling and so you're going to take a risk and you're going to have a candidates forum.
Yes, we are working, having conversations with the League of Women Voters in order to find ways to do some candidate forums. We're thinking of doing it on the state level, the county level, and nationally too, in terms of the senatorial congressional leadership, in order to hear from those persons who are seeking office as it relates to the issues that impact the Conference of Churches and the constituents that whom we serve. So that's an important element that we want to look at. And we also want to look at, as a Conference of Churches, ways that we can enable persons who are homeless to vote in the upcoming general elections, because we think that they should also have access to the ballot.
Well, I hope you can pull this together. We need some civil discourse for various candidates.
Yes.
I've been pretty much doing minimal things ever since my heart surgery. I'm still in recovery. And so the last time that you and I saw each other was at that really uplifting event service that you had organized and led to welcome a group of refugees to Allentown. And you even brought a few pictures of that we might bring up. Will you tell me about that and why it is important?
Well, it was an opportunity for a number of faith leaders to voice their welcome. And
welcome of who?
Of Syrian refugees.
Refugees from the war in Syria.
The war in Syria, as that war began to develop, it just seemed to me, particularly looking at the Lehigh Valley, that it was important for us to make a witness. The Lehigh Valley has the third largest Syrian population in the U.S.
The third largest.
Third largest.
And I got to say, if you've not found it yet, my favorite restaurant in the Lehigh Valley is 2 blocks from here on our same road here, just a little north, run by a Syrian Christian family. It's wonderful food and wonderful people. Go, please. Yeah. So, the event.
Yes. So, a number of us work together, Muslims, Jews, Christians, Buddhists, in order to find a way to welcome those who are coming. At the time, it was a very difficult event to put together because there was a lot of controversy related to refugees coming to the U.S. and the concern around terrorism was present. So many of, or I should say all of the refugees in the area were concerned about their well-being and did not attend the event. There was even pressure put upon us to cancel the event, but we went forward with it because we thought it was important for us to make a witness against terrorism, xenophobia, and intolerance. And we felt that as faith leaders, that's the role that we should play. So when we gathered, it really was an opportunity for us to give witness to our faith and to do something that all of our traditions call for, to welcome the stranger. And that was a very key part of what we were doing that evening.
It was an uplifting and morally righteous event. I was glad to have been there, Larry. Well, as if this weren't enough, we're very short of time here,
Sure.
But any other big issues that are on your plate these days?
Well, I would mention that every year we do our interfaith prayer breakfast on the birthday of Dr. King,
Yes.
that national holiday celebration, and that is a time where we bring together faith leaders in the community. And my expectation is that in 2017, that will not only be a prayer breakfast, but it will be a day of service where people from our various faith communities can actually do hands-on ministry in different settings. So that's one element that I see coming in the near future. We think that the Lehigh Conference of Churches can make a difference in the community in a much more profound way. And I think that we've started that through our work with our churches.
Well, Larry, I'm so glad to have you here on Taking the Initiative, and so glad to have you here in the Lehigh Valley. You really are becoming one of the more prominent public religious leaders. So I was glad to have a chance to share you with the audience. Thanks for your work and for talking about it.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. I'll be here again, same time, same place, again next week for other conversations with leaders in our community. In the meantime, I invite you to stay tuned for more positively different television to follow. And in between, you can go to our website and see some of the shows you may have missed. Good night.